Welcome to Slammed, a Boston Celtics podcast where we cover the Boston Celtics as well as the rest of the NBA. I'm Meghan Ottolini from WEEI, joined as always by Esteban Bustillos, and we will be joined by Justin Turpin from WEEI as well. He is once again on a live call with the radio station, but he'll be with us in just a few minutes. We're coming off of the 118-94 complete letdown from the Celtics in game
Yeah,
2 against the Cavs. Um, I think what a lot of people were getting at, we just got out of a Jayson Tatum press conference, Esteban, and it feels like what a lot of people were kind of driving at was how much of this feels like deja vu from the last series. You go up, you have this big dominant win over an inferior team, although the Cavs are certainly not as lowly as the Heat were in the first
right.
round. But then you have this second round where you let this other team get super hot from behind the arc and you kind of get embarrassed, as I wrote in my column, you get pantsed on your own parquet.
Mm. Ooh, that's
Um,
good. Nice alliteration. I like it.
yeah, alliteration. Do you think that there are real similarities between these two games? I think they're a little bit different, but I'll let you go first.
You mean game two of the Heat series and game two of
Yes,
this series? Yeah. Uh,
exactly.
I think if you look at like just Cleveland was incredibly hot from three. They shoot 46.4%, not as like out of this world as Miami was in that game too. Um, but I think the difference I see between the two games is that game two of Miami was just um again, Miami was shooting just out of their minds from beyond the arc. This, and they talked about this some of the post game. This is not to discredit Cleveland, but Boston just wasn't executing very well. Especially like there's at least three fast break points that they had where they just had guys streaking down the court, just Randy Moss open. Essentially uncontested layups on off of missed shots from Boston. Which at this point in the season, you're just like that shouldn't be happening with that frequency. Missoula mentioned, and I noticed too, Cleveland's pick and roll game tonight was outstanding, and Boston just wasn't doing a very good job adjusting to it. So I think it's easy to make that comparison. I do think the way it happened was a little different than what happened with Miami.
Yeah, I think for me, it came down to, like you said, the fast break points, the points in the paint in the first half are really what kept Cleveland around to the point that it was literally tied 54 all at halftime. Mobley was really the most dominant force for Cleveland in the first half. And then you come out of the half and they find a different way to knock your teeth out with Donovan Mitchell really waking up. Him and Darius Garland kind of trading those threes to start off the third quarter. And it almost felt to me, I said this to Terp when we were up in the press box. Um, I don't know what they were finding in Jayson Tatum on the perimeter when they were getting down there to start, but it didn't look good. I mean, I thought that what they let Donovan Mitchell discover with his momentum from behind the arc was just it reminded that part reminded me a lot of the game 2 against Miami, but it just started feeling like compounding mistakes where one thing kind of led to the other, bled over to the other side of the court.
Right.
Derek White had a really bad shooting night compared to who he's been through these playoffs. And it just was one of those nights where it started feeling like, okay, nothing's going to go their way and nothing was going to change that momentum when you've got Donovan Mitchell shrugging at the crowd and
Yeah.
skipping around the court, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, look, the Derek White thing. He finished with 10 points, 3 of 11 from the field, 1 of 8 from three. The things were bound to not necessarily like this specific performance wasn't, I think, bound to happen, but the shooting streak he had been on of the only people who had been putting up those numbers historically were like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and I think was it like there was like a Desmond Bain was in there as well, but like it was some of the best shooting that's ever happened in the history of the league. Um, yeah, it's he's not going to do that every night. But yeah, so that part is that contributed to tonight. Um, and Donovan Mitchell actually had more points in game one than he had tonight. But the rest of Cleveland, Turpin and I were talking after game one, is like, well, what can Cleveland do without Jared Allen? Donovan Mitchell just doesn't have enough help. The rest of the team really showed up tonight, executed much better than Boston did. And yeah, they kind of looked throughout the night. Boston looked throughout the night just not as into it as you would have hoped they would be. A chance to go up 2-0 heading into a game 3 in Cleveland. Yeah, I mean it's you don't want to, again, you don't want to discredit Cleveland, but it feels if you're watching Boston, disappointing. That this played out again. Again, Cleveland's a good team. It's the playoffs. Anybody can win. But I think overall, the expectation is that Boston would do more. And again, I know Porzingis is hurt, and they're obviously not at the level that they can be. But yeah, it's that's a tough loss. It's a tough loss for this team at this point, and where they are in their season and their evolution as a team.
To me, I think the toughest point in the entire game was maybe the buzzer beater to close out the third quarter, where it's Donovan Mitchell. He's right on the arc. He's got Tatum on him once again, squared up to him. So he turns, and Jaylen Brown is hedging over for the help, and he just crosses over back on Tatum, and just like nobody's there. Tatum's got the hand up to contest, nobody's there, and he just sinks a bucket. And at that point, it's like, what can you do? What more can you do on that play? And I think for me, Jaylen Brown, we just heard him speak post game about how the difference when a game like this, and Tatum called it a make miss league, but the difference is what you do on the boards, what you do on defense. They got totally dominated on the boards. I think they finished with Cleveland 54-41, something in that realm, which is bad, even though Porzingis is out. That's bad. They're down one of their bigs too. So it's not much of an
Yeah,
excuse. I'm wondering.
44-31, but still, yeah,
Sorry, 44-31. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I
And
overestimated
yeah,
that.
still not good. Especially because Boston out rebounded Cleveland. I forget the exact numbers, but by a lot in game one.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess, I feel like we're kind of dancing around one of the bigger things though, which is Tatum statistically, I think, had a better night than he's had in his couple of recent performances. He finished with 25 points. He went 7 for 17. Um, did you feel like this was a more commanding performance from him compared to some of his previous appearances, offensively at least?
Yeah, we were talking about this was a talking point after game one. I think he finished that game with 18 and 11, 18 points, 11 rebounds. So commanding, it's an interesting way to put it.
Because I would say it was a commanding performance from Donovan Mitchell in the second half.
Right.
Look, that everybody, his supporting cast kept them in the first half, absolutely. But the
Right.
second half, it changed because of what he was doing.
Yeah, I think like scoring wise, it was better for Tatum, especially him getting to the free throw line. 9 of 11
Yeah,
tonight, and that
very,
was
very early too.
that was good. Um, you know, obviously they're going to key on him, and every team is going to be like, let's stop Tatum. Let's make that the first priority. So I think to see him score more is good, but the what we talked about after the last game was like, okay, he wasn't scoring, and that was a concern. But he was making plays, he was setting screens, he was getting rebounds, and I think across the whole team, not just Tatum, that wasn't happening as much. Again, you look at the numbers for Tatum scoring wise, offensively, it's not terrible. I mean, shooting 40% from three, although like that came a little late in the game. So I think it's tough when you compare it to Mitchell again. Like, and he only had 4 more points than Tatum. But I think it's just that the rest of
But
the team was doing so well.
And here's my thing, I feel like I've said this so many times on the radio and written it, but my issue with the stat line like this that Tatum has, where you can point to it and say Donovan Mitchell had 4 more points, and how big of
Yeah,
a difference is that? Well, it's a difference of swinging the game, you know? It's a
yeah,
difference of coming out at halftime and outscoring the other team 34-22 in the 3rd quarter and swinging the whole momentum of everything. And
right,
I think that's where it's tough to look at it and say, "Okay, Tatum had 25 points, you know, are you gonna kill a guy who had 25 points?" And I'm not going to, but I do
right.
think that there's still we're still kinda waiting around to see the better, more competitive, more high executing playoff version of him, and I think that's okay to say. I don't think that's, like, killing him.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there was some takes where you would have you wanted a better finish at the rim, and look, it's not easy. He's going right into the teeth of the defense and just tough finishes. I think maybe more of the critique can be made where there's times where he settles for that mid-range fadeaway that has
Oh my
driven
god.
people nuts for a long time.
It's so
Um,
bad.
yeah, and I mean, look, he can hit that shot. It's just a tough shot for anybody to hit. Not just Jayson Tatum. But it is statistically speaking not one of the easier shots or more efficient shots for any shooter to make. Um, so yeah, you want to see more of what they were doing against Miami, where it's like, oh, Tyler Hero's on us. We're gonna just, if I'm Tatum or Brown, just take it to the rack every time. And I am interested to see how if they're going to try to hunt more of those mismatches. Cleveland doesn't have as many as Miami defensively, but if you can get switched on to Mitchell or Garland's, that is size wise a little bit of a better match. Or when Cleveland tries to bring in some of their other bigs like Marcus Morris Senior or Tristan Thompson, that's a mismatch too. Take more advantage of those where you can. Again, and it's not an easy thing to do, but yeah, just try to hunt more of those mismatches and less of the settling that you saw from at times from Tatum and Brown too, where those guys just weren't necessarily getting to the rack the way that I'm sure they wanted to tonight.
I think settling is right. It felt like a combination of settling while also, particularly in the first half when it was closer, pushing, kind of pushing to, as you said, trying to force it, trying to force the offense.
Yeah,
Um, and it didn't feel like it was, loose, organic, any of the things about when you feel like Tatum is playing his best ball. You didn't really feel any of that tonight, even though the stat line ends up being maybe a little bit better than some of the most recent performances. How much do you think at this point, when you watch a game like tonight, they're missing Kristaps Porzingis out there? Because I think
yeah,
particularly, Al Horford was pretty strong in the first half. And then I think in the second half, the first Luke Cornett stretch was a little rough.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
and compared to who he was in game 1, which was really, really great. And then in the second half, I felt Al, just really fading. And I think some of that is just a reminder of, what you're missing with Porzingis smartly rehabilitating the injury that he is and wearing an extremely cool jacket on the
Yeah,
bench, I'll
yeah,
say.
the throwback was it green and gold Celtics jacket.
Yeah, it was a
Uh
nice jacket.
yeah, I think I saw Jared Weiss describe it as, I think, what we call it, the Southie special, because he had the satin
Yes,
jacket and then
my people, my
yeah,
people.
the gray sweatpants with the white Adidas. Look, we all know, it's no secret that obviously Porzingis takes this team to another level on both sides of the floor. Um, so yeah, I think they're hurting and they're missing him. At the same time, Cleveland is missing Jared Allen. So
Mhm.
yeah, you know, it's sort of all things are the same. It feels like. So yeah, I don't think that can necessarily be an excuse for this team when they just needed to. I, I don't think they should have lost this game. They should have just executed better. And I think I forget if it was Tatum or Brown. Talking about, like, on offense, you can't, you're not getting as many chances to run, move in transition. And they were great when they did, but when Cleveland is hitting as consistently as they were. So yeah, the Porzingis thing, I think it's obviously a factor. But Cleveland's missing their big guy too.
Right.
And I think that may be for them almost more of a factor because they just don't have that sort of same skill set from most other folks. And then they're just a much thinner team, at least on paper, talent wise. But yeah, like if Porzingis plays tonight, is it different? Maybe, but if he plays tonight and they're not executing in the same way that they weren't tonight as well, then that's going to lose you games no matter who's on the floor for them.
Okay, I have very much a sports talk radio question to wrap us up here. I think Turp is trapped in sports radio land as we speak, so
Yeah.
he may not be joining us, but that's okay. Um, do you think it matters that this team is not sweeping other teams? That the Celtics haven't swept a team since the opening round of 2022. That year they go to the finals. It wasn't so long ago, but do you think
Yeah.
it matters that playing teams that are pretty strongly, either injured or
Yeah.
inferior in terms of their lineup compared to the Celtics, that these games are at least going 5, who knows, maybe it'll go 6,
Yeah.
kind of prolonging the path back to the finals.
Look, I'm going to go to the Joe Mazzulla route personally and be like, look, like the playoffs are supposed to be hard. You're not going to win every game. I do think, even after game 1, and this was my fault, I was like, oh yeah, like this is how quickly can Boston wrap this up and try to stay healthy? Because that's what it looked like, right? Like
Yeah.
just objectively, they just were outgunning Cleveland. So I don't think, again, I
For
don't
the
think,
record, I think we were all there.
right. I don't think the loss tonight is indicative of, where the series is going. And I don't think it should have happened because, again, I think it's objective to say that Boston has the better team. That doesn't mean I don't think they can lose another game in this series. I just don't expect it to be like this, where things are just the wheels are just falling off. And again, that happens. And especially with the team that relies on threes as much as they do, when you have a really bad shooting night from 3 as a whole, I think, what was it, 22.9% for the team, 8 of 35
Mhm.
from 3. Yeah, that's those nights happen. But it's not just that; it's everything else. All the other little things that, again, they're usually so good at, them just not doing. So, no, I don't think I'm like, oh, like this team should just go 12-0 and get to the finals. I think that's a little unrealistic. It's the NBA. Like even the bad teams are good. So no, I mean, do you, is that a feeling that you have that this should have been we should be more of like, oh, this team is sweep or
Well,
bust.
no. I still think they should have swept the Heat because that team was in such a difficult position to see you.
Yeah.
And I understand the shooting performance that they had. Again, it's like something that Tatum and Brown didn't even want to talk about tonight, where it's like, that's
Mm,
last series. We're over that. But there were some similarities to tonight, so it's hard not to think about it. I don't really care about that. I think what's a bigger deal to me is being able to use one of these series where, again, like, I agree with you. I don't think that this game is indicative of where the series is going, what the
mm,
final outcome is going to be. But can Tatum figure out how to use some of these opportunities to get out of the slump with his shooting and with his game overall right now? Because that's the kind of thing that does give me more pause than anything else. I don't really care if they're sweeping the series. I don't really care,
right.
about a lot of these kind of narratives. That one is a little scary to me.
Yeah, and I look. I mean, it's like, sometimes you just you run into that, like, not, it's not really a wall, but uh is it fair to call a slump? Yeah, maybe not, but that happens to every athlete, right? Like things don't go as perfectly as you want, even to someone as skilled, as talented as Jayson Tatum. I think that is a fair point, but I do think that will even itself out one way or the other. And I know again, this has been like the conversation around Boston is Tatum scoring, Tatum shooting. I don't expect it to stay at where it's at, and I'm sure we'll see a breakout here sooner rather than later, and sort of get back to a more consistent-ish level that we've expected of him. But yeah, so I know tonight heading into tomorrow people are going to freak out. There's knowing Boston, it's gonna it's not going to be like a well reserved steady observation. But I think this team, look, they had a bad game, a bad night. They gotta go back and fix it, because the time to have these nights is running out. Because if you get to Eastern Conference
Mhm.
Finals, you get to the finals, bad nights against that level of teams will lose you series. You can't have those sort of slip ups at that level, and I'm sure they know that. Yeah, so it's really just can they fix those issues, which I think they can, but now it's time to see if they will.
Oh, look, there's Terp. Terp, we were just about to wrap up. Any quick whoa there, buddy.
Sorry, I was trying to turn my mic on.
Any quick parting thoughts from this game tonight?
Yeah, they got to be better. It's simple as that. You got to be better, especially on defensive end.
Insightful.
Yeah, well, there you go. Sometimes it's as simple as that. But they entered this year with an increased emphasis on defense. After they lost, they went down 0-3 to Miami last year. They talked about a defensive disconnect and wanting to get back to priding themselves on that end of the ball. And they did that for most of the year, and it was successful. They got away from that tonight, and look what happens. So they got to wake up. They got to pride themselves on the defensive end, and that's where they got to hang their hat, because it affects their offense directly. I saw the stat. I won't bore you guys with the stats, but their two lowest scoring games also happened to be the only two games that they allowed over 100 points.
Wow.
So those two are directly related, and they know
I do
that.
believe
And
that.
I know we all hate the term wake up call, and I'm cringing myself even saying it, but this serves as a wake up call in the sense that they need to stick with their defense. Like, I don't think game 2 is a wake up call, because that's going to happen, or teams are going to have hot shooting nights. Maybe not another 23 3-point night for a team that doesn't really make a whole heck of a lot of threes. But when you get away from your identity, I think you can be woken up in that sense where you need to stick with that. You need to get back to that. And I think that's what tonight is for the Celtics.
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, it's getting late here at the Garden. Hopefully, they can figure out that identity again by game 3. And Terp, you're going to be in Cleveland.
Yes,
So
yes,
I'm excited to hear about your journey. I'm sure we'll get to that next week.
Oh, we sure will.
Okay. Hopefully, it'll be coming off of some wins. Not another night like tonight. I can't take it.
Not enough home loss. Can't do them anymore. I just can't do them.
All right. Well, this has been Slam. Thanks, guys, and we will talk to you very soon.